Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guest today is Nashville Mayor John Cooper. Mayor, we're about to start the budget season this year. One thing that'll be different is that we've had a countywide reappraisal. It's required every 4 years. This is the year it has to happen. Have you talked to the assessor of property? What is her study likely to show, and what's that likely to do to the tax rate?
Well, I talked to Vivian Wilhoyd, a very fine property assessor, last night. They're busy compiling this. They don't have final numbers. But clearly, I think what we all feel is that values have gone up, particularly in residential appraisals. People need to be ready for that. The last year of COVID, who would have predicted it, have really driven residential values way up in Nashville. That's because we're a desirable city. We're thriving. People want to move here. People want to live here. And that's going to drive valuation up and result in a reduction in our property tax rate.
The reappraisal can't cause a property tax increase for people on itself, so you're going to have to cut the rate. Any idea of what you think would be substantial?
Final numbers are not in, but Nashville now for many years has had huge increases in valuation compared to other cities. It's a testament to how thriving and vibrant we are as a community. And when you're #1 in U-Haul at relocations, did you know this is a crazy thing? #1 in U-Haul at destinations, it's showing how many people want to live here, and that creates stresses on the city.
A 34% property tax increase from last year created an effort. This is the second time for a petition campaign to repeal the 34%. I don't think you can do that legally under state law, but they also want to put restrictions of no more than 3% increase in a given year. Does that give you concern? Do you believe the city will be trying to fight that from getting on the ballot?
Well, I mean, I'm going to be focused on the rebound, but that being said, I worry that the referendum allows people to think something that is not true about Nashville, Tennessee, which is that we are California and that we set things like property taxes by referendum. We don't do that in Tennessee. It's part of Tennessee, I think, being effective. That's why people are leaving California and coming to Tennessee, is we don't play by this California rule book. We have an opportunity to fix our financial problems. The council and I moved last year to do that. Let's spend a moment on this. Why was it necessary, the property tax referendum? We did not have a rainy day fund. We did not have reserves. We were not allowed to borrow money to fix the operating budget. We were called out for poor financial management by the controller before the COVID crisis hit. So we were a responsible governing group that fixed problems last year. And we did that.
4 years ago, when the last reappraisal they had to cut the rate back down. They took pride that they had set the lowest rate ever in the history of Nashville.
Right.
So do you have to guard against that happening again, that you cut the rate too low? Because it wound up starting some of the problems with the city having budget issues.
You do. You always have to have appropriate financial planning. The cutting the tax rate was also matched by the raiding of reserves and a lot of financial practices that were not sustainable. And the combination of that put the city in an untenable position when COVID hit last year. And we need to be a city that works, that still works, and works for everybody. And you were putting that basic city function in jeopardy by having too low a property tax rate without reserves, without a rainy day fund, without the normal prudent financial management that the city deserves to have.
One of the big issues that emerged during last year's budget was the effort, not only in Nashville but across the country, to defund police. That has continued to be there. We've had a lot of unrest about social justice in this community, a lot of peaceful demonstrations, and one that got out of hand that ended up in a riot at the courthouse. Are we better prepared for that? Are you better prepared to deal with calls to defund police? Well, and is that something we need to look at?
Well, several council people have pointed out to me the most popular thing in our budget has been an extra police precinct in Southeast Nashville to serve people better in that whole area of Nashville. So I don't think in Nashville it's a question of defunding the police, it's serving better. Now, we announced yesterday Ron Johnson, a community safety coordinator in Metro, to begin to help fund our nonprofit partners in community safety. Now, that's not only violence interruption, that is mental health, that's drug addiction, because you've had huge spikes in that during COVID in the last year. So it's doing a better job with community safety, not targeting the police for cuts, which, you know, I'm super grateful. Recruitment has been strong. I was yesterday at Class 92, the recruitment class. We're going to be able to fix long-standing issues with public safety by action now. And defunding the police, I understand where the rhetoric is coming from, but the community wants to be served and wants to be served well.
You have almost an embarrassment of riches. The federal government sending out more money to help you recover from the virus.
Nice problem to have, right?
Well, does that mean we'll not have a status quo budget per se in terms of funding this year?
Well, funding will be up. Funding will be up. I mean, that's part of the determination by the council to agree to fixing our balance sheet with last year's property tax increase. But there's no question funding will be up because we have people to serve. And some of the funding will come from the Biden administration stimulus bill. Now, we are headed to a
that's one-time money.
One-time money, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a lot of one-time problems, right, that we need to get on and address. But let's look at this kind of golden age of education. MMPS is really going to get significant funding from the Biden administration. Now, what's going well? You've got a strong superintendent who works well with the board. You've got a supportive mayor. We've put in the largest capital spending ever by a city into schools. We're going to have the best paid teachers in the state of Tennessee. Our retention rate is excellent, and the Biden money, I think, will be transformative in improving our educational system in Nashville.
Nashville Mayor John Cooper is our guest. Our conversation continues on the other side of this break. Stay with us.